Good afternoon, flosstube. Gem Stitch here with my February and March update. Hopefully I won't have so many issues. I didn't ask her permission, but there was a lovely flosstuber that gave me some advice on how to upload videos through Windows Media. But because I didn't ask her permission, I'm not going to say her name, but thank you very much. So hopefully I've made notes because it's been a while and I did a couple of test runs. I should be able to insert pictures and upload the video, no problem. Let's hope. He is hoping. So I actually, for me, although my videos can be quite long, I actually have quite a bit to talk about because I actually worked on quite a few projects, but it's just the way it worked for like the end of February coming into now March. So what I'll do is I'll start off with going back sort of into February, because obviously I did my video mid-February, and that was I follow the sales. So without keep going over it, basically the way I'm going to work my rotation and to be able to do new starts that I already have in stash, as such, patterns I already have, I've used the Stitch Maynia Facebook group as a guide to what I focus on every month. I do it monthly because weekly sometimes I'm lucky to pick up stitching at all, and other weeks I can work on it, so it would be unfair for me to have a weekly rotation for me on a project, because there'd be certain projects that might not even get an evening. So so I prefer to do it monthly, because then I feel that although there'll be some months that I work on projects more than others, generally they've all had a month as a focus piece, that's what I call them. So so for February it was the stitch along. I love stitching, I believe. The guide for that was stitch something that you love, stitch a project for someone you love, stitch a project that's about love. So as I've spoken about before, so I don't want to keep repeating myself, they're quite broad, quite open-minded, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a new project either. It can be a current project, which is what's really good, because otherwise you feel like I can participate in almost every single sale as such and use it as a focus piece without having to feel like I have to make a new start for every single one, and then I end up having loads of works in progress, which for some people is great, like, you know, the year of starts and things, but not for me at the moment. But this is the first year that I'm going to have more than one start. I used to be a one project stitcher, other than my little travel carry around projects. But this is quite nice because obviously I was building up a stash collection, and it's quite nice that I can focus on other pieces in my pattern collection, and actually I've got two finishes, one new start, one work in progress. So yeah, quite a bit for me to show, but I think that's just the way it falls. Obviously there's going to be months where that doesn't happen. So in February it was We Love Stitching, going back to my original conversation instead of going on a tangent, and my pattern that I chose was a pattern I already had in my stash, like I said, was a French pattern. So it was, sorry about the glare, it's a really miserable, wet looking English day. I've moved up into the bedroom again because actually I get unobstructed light here, what little I have, so I'm hoping that the colours will be as true as possible. So yes, so anyway, this is a Creations de Chrystelle, and this is the pattern. I did make some changes to this pattern. This picture doesn't really do it justice, to be fair. I mean, it is shabby chic, like sort of that European shabby chic style, but it's that looks very blocky, and it's not quite that blocky. I did make some changes, which I did highlight in my last video, and I didn't have much left to do. I only had these bits. So I finished it in February. So hopefully you'll be able to see this. This is my finish. So as you can see, I did make some changes. The alphabet was the main change for me. It was quite blocky, and I didn't want, you can see it, it's just, I didn't want it to be, I wanted it to be more lacy, like the thread coming off the bobbins. So I just used, which I didn't bring with me actually, a book from that I purchased off of eBay, and it, I will link the information below. I'm sure the lady's name's Dal, and it's like an ABC book, you know, when you get the different alphabet books so that you can use, and it's just handy to have. And again, didn't have to buy that, I already had it. Well, I did buy it, but oh, it's one of these days. But I already had it in my stash, so I just used an alphabet from there that I thought worked well. Didn't really make too many changes. There's a few speciality stitches in here, but nothing that, you know, even someone that hadn't tried speciality stitches would be able to understand the diagrams, even if you don't speak fluent French. They're not particularly complicated, the stitches that they use, and they're the stitches that they do use, which is the eyelets and the Smyrna crosses. There's, if you didn't see a flosstube video on them, you would be able to find information on how to do them on the internet. They're not difficult at all, these particular ones. So yeah, so one of my first changes was obviously the alphabet, which I suppose would be a significant change. I kept the colours the same. The next change that I did was I wanted this sort of piece, this stitching piece, to represent my stitching to date, sort of thing. So I chose a hand-dyed fabric, which this is a Crafty kitten, hand-dyed. It was the January 2015 limited edition. So yeah, and it's like a green. I think it's showing true to colour on the screen. It's like a green with pinks, or the pinks almost look bleached pink. Like, I really like it, and I thought it'd work well with the sort of colours. I didn't change any of the colours in the pattern, so I thought that this would actually work quite well. This was all stitched, but I decided, as I wanted it to represent my stitching to date, to add beads. So in the heart, instead of the yellow, which was here, so to give a polka dot effect, I stitched some yellow beads. I don't know if you can tell yet, that I had from stash in there, and I added some of the yellow beads just on the bottom. I like to balance things out, so there's some yellow beads there too on the bottom. And any other changes? These two buttons, obviously, because I altered the alphabet, it meant that they come in a little bit further. With these, it wasn't for me too much of an issue because there was bobbins here. But there was a bit of a gap here. I mean, it wouldn't have been the end of the world, but I decided that I would use these two little buttons as embellishments. And obviously I've done mirabilias and things, so I've added embellishments in my stitching to date, so it was quite nice. So beading, excuse me, some minor speciality stitching, and some embellishments and a hand-dyed fabric. I felt that this was a good representation of my stitching so far. So this is my finished piece, and I'm quite pleased with it. It's stitched up really quickly. It was my focus piece for February, and I finished it, I think it was around the 18th or something like that. It wasn't, it didn't take too long at all. Which meant that obviously I had a bit of time before my next focus piece, which was to start in March. So I decided to go back to a project that I hadn't done or picked up for a long time, so work in progress. And that was I didn't bring the pattern up. But that was the creation by Attempting Tangles. That you've probably heard me mention before. So hopefully, all going well, I'll insert a picture as to roughly where it was left off. I mean, the last time I picked it up was the beginning, well it wasn't, yeah, so it was the end of September I put it down because I started a new project in October, so it hadn't been touched for quite a while. And this is where I'm at now, which I've kept it on the frame because I finished another project, and so I may actually be going, because this is my biggest project, I may go back to it if I get bits in between, so that's why I've kept it on the frame. So yeah, I mean, nothing really too noticeable. This is actually a page finish here, so it works in 3 pages going across, and this is almost all full coverage. So, and then I've started to come in, so this just continues to be Storm, which will be here. So, and so then I would have finished pages 1, 2 and 3, and then I've got a choice as to whether to come straight down, because it goes, there's 9 in total, 9 pages, or to obviously go across, start from where I was, because I start from the middle of it in a project, and yeah, and then move across. So yeah, not too much. I'll try and get that closer. Not too much going on, but it was nice to have a bit of progress on that, and it was nice to work on it again. It is quite confetti heavy, but you can cross country where possible, but there are also the dots where there's like 1 stitch on its own, and obviously because it's a cream fabric, I don't want to carry threads because especially some of the dark blues in it, you'd see the line and that will irritate me, so I'm not doing that. So yeah, so that took me up to March 1st, which was the stitch along It's Not Easy Being Green, and as I explained in my last video, any works in progress take precedent over a new start, and actually I could have worked on all my works in progress because all of them had green in them, weirdly, but one of them was on green fabric, so that made sense to stitch on that one, and I got another finish. So this one is the Peony Pixie by Nora Corbett. I didn't really make too many changes to her. There's a krenik which I subbed out for petite treasure braid, because I prefer using it, so if I can I will. But that was it really. Oh, and the fabric obviously. So this is my finished piece. So that's the Peony Pixie by Nora Corbett. And as you can see, the colour here on the wings, this is all done in petite treasure braid. I will link it below. I think I may have made a mistake on my last video and said it was 207 or something, but I think it's PB27. So, but I will definitely confirm that and change it. So yeah, this has a lot of beading. She has a lot of sparkly beady wings, which I didn't kind of realise. I like it, but I didn't realise she was that sparkly beady. And it has 3 treasures on it. Now, anyone that's buying the Peony pattern recently, I assume, I mean I bought it last year just before Christmas, it came with a little green note in it saying that this one was no longer available, this treasure, Mill Hill treasure, so to buy 2 packs of, because these come in packs of 2, so to buy obviously 2 packs of these and just put the little sort of pinky peony flower in her hand instead. But it just so I did, but it just so happened that another website that I was ordering from, I thought, oh, I'll just check just to see, and they had it. They must have still had it in stock, so I ordered it. So this one is actually the original bead as charted, which is slightly bigger than the other beads. So yeah, I used that one. But yeah, I mean now I've got 2 pretty beads. Oh, how tragic, in my stash, which I'm sure I can find for something else. So yeah, I stitched her skin 1/1. The fabric that I'm using is a Sparklies hand-dyed fabric. It is the October limited edition for 2015. So, and I chose, obviously this is the green. Is it accurate? It's looking a little bit washed out on the screen. But if you sort of focus on these colours, imagine that sort of this colour is more of the base, so therefore this is slightly darker. So it is much more green. But I liked it because of the contrast between her orangey pink skirt and the green. I thought it would make her pop just a bit more. So, but yeah, I stitched her skin 1/1 and I changed krenik and turned it into a petite treasure braid as such. Instead, there's no other changes, I believe, on this piece. No, I don't think so. And obviously, technically, even with the treasures, I actually stitched as charted as such, or placed as charted, because I managed to find one. It wasn't that I was massively looking, it was just like as I'm on here, let's see if they have scenario. I mean, if it wouldn't have worried me too much to swap it out for the other ones, but yeah. So one last look. I'm really pleased with her, and it's my sort of Pretty Lady Mirabilia Lavender and Lace Kick, because I try not to have too many large projects on the go at once. So this is ideal because this is a lot smaller. I mean, this is almost the equivalent of an 13 by 18 piece of fabric, so it's half a fat quarter. Yes. So yeah, these are ideal because although they can be time consuming, they're not the equivalent of obviously stitching this again and again, which would be your normal full scale Mirabilia. So yes, I've taken the measurements for those because with my stitching, I Love Stitching pattern, and with this Nora, Corbett, Peony, Pixie, I'm going to try and frame them myself. They're a lot smaller, so I can't keep paying out for framing. So yeah, my plan of action was to frame them, possibly frame them myself. So I've taken the measurements and I'm on the lookout for just the right frame, or something that I can change quite easily into just the right frame. I don't mind painting a frame, but yeah. So yeah, so that obviously meant that I finished that early too. So like I said, I may go back to doing creation by Tempting Tangles, and there's still time. However, I did have a new start. It wasn't planned and it doesn't follow any stitch along, but I want it as a gift, so it does have a time restriction on it. I want it as a Christmas present. So my plan of action is to use it as a birth sampler and to stitch a letter, because I'm going to spell out her name, a month. And if I can stitch a letter a month, there's 7 letters, it's going to be called the Bethany Sampler. Then if I can stitch her name out, then that will give me enough time as well to frame it just before it goes into the mad rush for Christmas. So the pattern that I'm using, again it was from Stash, is called the ABC Patissier. So it is literally the alphabet with sweet little patisseries and things in the French style. This is a French pattern. It is by, let me have a look, and my French is not great, Les Brodeuses Parisiennes. I will write all that information down, don't go by my terrible French. But yeah, so this is their pattern. It's, as you can tell, it's on all the, they're not double-sided, it's not printed double-sided, just to let people know. So each, they're doing it in sections of 4. They're on A4 pieces of paper, and they're on like this thicker, like almost slightly photographic cardstock. It does ask that you don't photocopy, and I've not had to. It's quite clear, they're quite big and they're quite large, and that's quite nice, and nothing that if you put a ruler near it to use as a guide that you'd be able to quite easily see, wouldn't get lost where you are. The patterns aren't that confetti heavy. Yeah, so obviously that's my plan of action. So obviously her name's Bethany. I'm not going to give out any more details than that, and she was born in January of this year, so I thought it would be quite nice for Christmas that she would, that would be plausible, that potentially if I can stitch a letter a month, then hopefully I would be able to, then she should have it for Christmas, and it's nice and she gets to keep it. And obviously I love this shabby chic, and it's food. See, I love food orientated things, as I've said before, strange girl. So I've had this pattern in my stash going, I will definitely one day do something for this pattern, and stitch something with it. And it just seemed like when Bethany was born, it was the perfect excuse, basically, to start it. So I'm already kind of nearly there, because I finished the Peony Pixie so early. I've only got a little bit of stitching left to do, literally, and then the rest is back stitching on the letter B. So I've got some berries that's going to come down here, but literally everything that I've got left to do is back stitching on there. There's not a load, there's a little bit, and there's multiple changes of it, so it's done by colour. There's a few changes, but nothing that it wouldn't be the end of the world. So the fabric I've chosen to stitch it on, as you can see, is actually a Belfast. So this is a Zweigart Belfast, 32 count Belfast linen, and this is in vintage green. For my birthday in December, my husband bought me quite a large amount of fabric, and you'll see another piece actually coming up. He bought me quite a large amount of fabric, and within that stash, and obviously this is the vintage green, but it's one of those where it looks like a hand dyed, because it almost looks mottled. It is actually very similar to what you're seeing if it's right on screen, but it's printed on. So the other side, as you can see from where it's been rolled up, it's green, but it's completely flat. It's a flat colour. So in some ways that would give you two options, and obviously this is a lot cheaper than purchasing hand dyed as such. And although I love the hand dyed, as you can tell, my last two finishes were on hand dyed. This needs to be quite long, because it's on 32 count, so this is actually quite a long piece. I think I bought it, and I don't know what the conversion is in inches, but I think I bought it as a 50 by 140 centimetre piece, so that I could cut it in half and have it as a strip. So that basically, I mean, I don't need 140 centimetres, but what I'll do is I'll stitch her name along, and then when I come to frame it, or decide what I'm going to do with it, then I've got, and then I'll remove the fabric. But it does also mean that I've got another long fabric piece that I can, stitch another name on. So yeah, so that's where I'm at, and I'm really pleased. I think that it's definitely got quite a bit of definition, and although it still needs back stitching, I think it's quite nice. And I picked this, it's called Vintage Green, should anyone be interested. And I picked this because I felt that it wasn't pinky, too girly, so hopefully it would see her through. The other option possibly would have been to stitch it on a grey, but I am a little bit obsessed with grey, so I try not to stitch things too much on grey, because it seems like that looked nice on grey, that looked nice on grey, and I've painted my walls grey, and I have a lot of grey things. So, you know, you think I'm trying not to deliberately staying away from grey, because otherwise I could potentially just be pulling out whips that are just grey. But yeah, so I thought that this vintage green would work with the shabby, sort of country, shabby chic style of this French pattern, and translate well with all the other colours as well, because it's sort of muted. So yeah, so this is the vintage green. It's 32 count linen, Belfast linen, and it is a zweigart, which means obviously you can buy it off the roll as such. I mean, I have to order it online, but you can obviously dictate how much you want and these sort of things, which makes it so much easier. I know you can do that with hand dyeds, but obviously that can get quite pricey when you need to order really large pieces. And I think like this ended up, because there was a sale on as well, I think this piece ended up costing me like £10 for the whole piece. And technically I've got another, well, depending on how long the names are, but technically I'll have quite a bit left over on here, and I've got a whole nother strip of it for another name or whatever. So yeah, I mean, in comparison, when you think that, and don't get me wrong, they do take time and effort with the hand dyes, but when you think that a piece can cost you, for 32 count linen, hand dyed, for sort of 18 by 27 piece, can cost you like £20 nearly. Yeah, that's why this just worked better for me. So yeah, I'm really pleased. So let me just grab the, so yeah, as you can see I've got berries, and I don't know, let me have a look. Yeah, see on this you wouldn't even really see the back stitching on here, maybe because they've done it so it looks a bit lacy, so that will be back stitching here. And obviously the next one will be E, that I'll be working on for Bethany. So looking at the way the pattern's laid out, there will be a little bit of working out. So I've decided, because the way that it actually does show it on here, the way that they've put them on it is very clear, so it's just me possibly being a bit silly, but the way they've laid it out on here is very much like, if this is an A4 piece, this would be your A4 piece, A, B, C, D. And as you can see, A is here, B is up here. Each letter covers 6 by 6 blocks, six blocks across and 6 down. So originally I put a guideline in to help, and I put it straight down the middle. However, I've noticed that when I was working it out, that meant that, for example, when you come across, they wouldn't, even if I did like sort of counted up the 3 blocks and started the middle here, it meant that the top wouldn't necessarily align with the top of the B here. So I've decided that it's more important, I think, because obviously the cakes are all laid out differently, so some come further down, some are higher up, blah blah blah. So I've decided that it's more important that all the letters at the top line up. So what I'll probably do, I'll leave the guideline in, but what I'll probably do is put another guideline here, so that all I've got to do is count across and then start on the E. There. I hope that makes sense. I'm not sure it even made sense to me, but I know what I mean. Until I get there, I won't know. So the issue that I have with this is that, obviously, it's not an issue, is that I've nearly finished with this B, so the E I would start next month, April. But as this is a present, I'm thinking what I may do, don't be surprised if I do, is creation is due to come up in my rotation anyway, is that if I've got spare time to work on a project, is because this has a deadline, is just work on it until, you know, another stitch along comes up, like until the 1st of April for me. So I may do that. So even if I get this completed, I may then move straight onto the E and keep doing that, because then in a way I've given myself an even bigger head start, rather than plot to do it the 7 letters a month. But that needs to be, I need to try and complete a letter a month as a target, and then that way I won't be in an almighty rush, especially at the end of the year in November and December, where I don't have a lot of time anyway. So yeah, This is the Bethany sampler, is what I've renamed it, but I will put all the information below. It is actually the ABC, or the ABC Patissier. I mean, it would look beautiful as a one whole piece. You have actually got little borders here as well, which you can add, take away. They're really good, and they do other ABC patterns, which are stunning, absolutely stunning. They're not cheap. The patterns. I mean, I managed to actually pick this one up in a sale, and it was probably one of the most expensive patterns I've bought, even in the sale. But I just loved it so much, and I'd had my eye on it for such a long time that it was like, no, treat myself. So, and that's why I bought it. And obviously, arguably as well, I mean, how much use could you get out of this? I'm doing it for Bethany. You know, I've got a niece, Sophie, as well, that I could use this for if I didn't pick another. ABCs, I mean, they're the sort of thing that they get used over and over and over again. So, yeah, these patterns are great, and I really love this style. So, go check them out. So that leads me to, I'm looking at the time, that leads me to my April, which is April showers brings May flowers. Now technically, if I hadn't have finished the Peony Pixie, I would have then gone on to continue with her, because she's a flower fairy type thing, flower pixie. I didn't really have anything else in my works in progress rotation that would have fitted the flower theme. So obviously I've got enough, I had enough room. It's not like I've taken up all my patterns, and although technically I've had two finishes, so I've got 2 folders out of my 11 free, although I did then start a new start, so I've still got 1 folder free. So, you know, yeah, I've got space. So I started, or I will be starting, I'm really excited about this. Sorry about the rustling. This is, it's going to be probably quite hard to see. This is one of my favourite designers at the moment. So it's Italian. I'm going to just butcher these poor European languages. It's just horrendous, isn't it? Ignorance. Right. Corbett, I believe is how you pronounce it. There you go. She's one of my favourite designers at the moment. And I have, this is the summer garden. And I have all 4. So there's a spring, summer, autumn, winter. And I know it's April showers brings May flowers. I thought I would go for the summer. I wanted to encourage summer. So that's why I decided to go with the summer garden. I just love the design. The simplicity of it as such. But it's sort of simply beautiful, as in but it's intricate enough. It gives that intricate effect. That's what I just love about this. As you can tell, a bit like the Bethany sampler. It's that I love this style. I mean, it suits my house perfectly as well, because I live in a period property. I can get away with this sort of shabby chic style, country style, as well as the more heavy ornate, because it's Victorian, so can definitely do heavy and ornate style patterns with like the mirabilias and the lavender and lace, with if it's got heavy beading. I mean, it would work perfect. But I also like the clean crispness of this sort of particularly this European country style, which I can also get away with. So best of both. I love it. So yeah, this is what I will be starting on the 1st of April for April showers brings May flowers. Obviously I can't show you the pattern. As you can tell, the way I can do that, they sort of fold it like a little book. Yeah. and that's how they come. There's quite a few pages, very clear. Again, the really nice and easy to read. However, they don't use symbols, they're using colours. So this will be the first pattern I've used where they use a colour instead of a symbol to tell you what thread to use. But again, I've looked at it, I don't think that's going to put me off at all. And the, you know, they've laid it out beautifully. I'm not sure what I can show you, which is why I'm really reluctant to, but it is such a shame. I mean, believe me, you would not need to, if you've done any cross stitching at all, not advanced, not intermediate, not expert, beginner, but at least try one, you would be able to stitch this, because it is so clear and how it's laid out. So don't let the fact that it's in Italian put you off. As I've said before, you really shouldn't, because this is so clear and easy to read. I haven't stitched with it yet, but I can tell it's going to be fine. All the colours that are used are DMC, so that's all good. Now, obviously, on the, I know it's not the greatest picture in the world, that's apparently ecru. It looks quite dark. But that's apparently ecru. Obviously, I've changed that. I didn't want to do the ecru. I was going to do it on grey. There's a surprise, but I didn't. I'm not going to do that. I'm not. And but yeah, I'm actually going to use a pattern that I've fabric that I've already got in my stash, which is even better. Literally, all I've had to do is buy a couple of the DMC threads for this new start. It's great. But yeah, this was another one from my husband. This is a 32 count Belfast linen by Zweigart, and it's in a little bit washed out but pretty accurate within the pattern, where the pattern works. And obviously this is the vintage blue. That's where I make a label, sorry. But yeah, so this is in the vintage blue, and I just felt that, well, my plan of action is that within this vintage range, because it's almost like a repeated mottle pattern, I'm actually going to stitch the 4 seasons on different colours, but there'll be a continuity because it's a similar mottling on, obviously, because it's a printed pattern. So the spring I'll do on the green, which I'm actually using for the Bethany. I have a green piece. That's the blue. Autumn I'll do on, I can't remember what I decided, whether it was the mocha or, let me show you, because I actually picked up this, which is a sample card by Zweigart, and I'm going to cover up any information just in case I'm not meant to. That's just the address, so that should be fine. Just in case I'm not meant to show anything, but I've written on it so that I could tell. But you see here's a sample of all of the vintage pattern, printed pattern that Zweigart do. So that gives me an idea of what to, without having to order it, roughly. Although, to be fair, actually, my husband was really good to me, and I have most of these now in a fat quarter. So, but yeah, obviously there's the vintage green, that's your vintage blue. I think I was going to stitch it on this one, which is the country mocha, and then the winter I was going to do in a grey. Haha, but it worked. So yeah, so that was my plan of action on what to stitch those on. I got this from Patissier, which is an Italian company, which are awesome. Their delivery, I mean, okay, I technically at the moment live in Europe, so, but living in the UK, but oh my, super fast delivery, great service, never had any problems with them, and I really like them. So yeah, they are my go-to. I actually check you know how you can stalk, people probably, stitchers will appreciate this, you can stalk stitching sites. What's gone in the sale bin? What's on special? What's new? Yeah, that used to be 1, 2, 3 Stitch for me. Not anymore. It's Patissier now for me. I will put the information down below. They're beautiful, and obviously they do, although 1, 2, 3 Stitch do some like jardin privé and sort of the continental patterns. Patissier have a lot more. So yeah, so my plan of action is to stitch, going back rather than on a tangent, is to stitch this pattern by the company Corbett, which is the Summer Garden, on this blue, vintage blue. If you can hear like a little rustling, that is my heavy-footed cat walking around on carpet. How? Just shows you. I mean, he doesn't look massive, just it's heavy. So yeah, so that will be my new start for the 1st of April. Yeah, for the stitch along in Stitch Mania. April showers brings May flowers. So that is it. Once again, thank you for watching. Thank you for all your comments as well. The last 3 videos, or as in the last video, but it was in 3 parts. I know it was quite trying, and thank you for those that stayed to the end. So hopefully this should all load up in one go. It is actually, time is ticking on. Wow. But excuse the rustling. But yeah, so thank you to all my old long-suffering subscribers. Thank you to any new subscribers that I have. I'm relatively up to date with flosstube, but with all the new floss tubers that have started, which is great. Sometimes I can fall a little bit behind, but I'm loving watching all your works in progress. I think you're all really talented and amazing and very inspiring. So if you've got any questions, then please ask. I will endeavour to try and comment, and thanks again. So stay safe, happy stitching guys, bye bye.